Whenever you're ready.
Who, me?
Yes.
You want me to go? You're the interviewer. You
We
go
have,
like, hello, welcome to the show. That's your job.
hello, welcome to welcome to the Q&A session with Doug O'Brien. And
Yay, that's what you do, yes. And who are you?
I'm Margaret Wilshire. I'm your
Oh,
moderator for the
that's who you
the
are. That's right.
evening.
That's right. Good. Well, it's a pleasure for me to be here, and I know this is new to you, Margaret. So we'll see. Now, can everyone hear us? Okay, everyone on the call. Could you just wave or something if you can hear us? Wave. All right, that's good. Um, I can see your forehead. So we have Demont, is that right? And we have Margaret, and we have Sheila, and we have Chateau,
That's Michelle.
Michelle. Hi, Michelle. And Michelle, can you hear us? Okay, great, perfect. So Margaret, thank you for having me. Should we get started with some questions?
Sure.
People
So
are
the
probably looking forward to hearing questions and answers, I suspect.
so the first question that I was asked was about the syllabus. What's on the syllabus?
Syllabus? For what? You really want to start with the syllabus question?
We can start with something else. Why don't we start with what's NLP?
Okay, that's a great question. Um, I don't know what background people have who are listening to this call, so I'll just kind of wing it, and hopefully it'll be interesting to you. NLP, or Neuro Linguistic Programming, as you probably know a little bit, or otherwise you wouldn't be here at all, is a kind of new form of psychology, maybe that. Well, on one hand, it is. It is a new form of psychotherapy. On one hand, it is that. In that it looks at the brain as if it's like a computer, hence the name Neuro-Linguistic Programming. But it's a huge, amazing departure from traditional psychotherapy that looks at the brain as if it's like this cauldron of, unfulfilled urges and stuff like that. And by the way, all listeners, could you just make sure that your microphone is muted so that, like, if your dog barks or something, we don't hear that? So go ahead and mute yourself on your sets there, everybody, please, so that we don't hear extraneous noise. So it looks at the brain as like a computer, which is different from traditional psychotherapy that looks at the brain as like it's a seething cauldron of unrealized desires, like the Oedipus complex thing where you want to kill your father and sleep with your mother, sort of thing. It's just this. That's what Freudian psychotherapy had all going for it. NLP said no. The brain's a computer. We don't need to go into these big diagnostics of how you got to be the way you are. We just realize that the
Hello.
results you get, hi, the results you get, the feelings that you have, the results that you get, how you motivated in life, is a result of a program that you run in your brain.
Hey Sheila, can you mute your trying to mute it over there. Sorry. Sheila, can you mute yourself? No, I can hear
Nope.
you.
Hello.
We can
There's
hear
there's a
you.
there's a little icon that looks like a microphone with a line through it.
I think
So
I
if you
just
click
muted
on
her.
it, okay,
Can't
that's
find it.
beautiful. Yeah, you are now muted. That's great. So getting back to NLP, so it looks at the brain as it's like a computer. So if you run a program, you get a certain results out. If you don't like the results you're getting, you can change your program and get different results. And it's amazing. It works really well. So on one hand, it's sort of a new form of psychotherapy because it cuts short this process of change and lets us, change from being afraid or being depressed into being happy and motivated, and we get on board with what we want to do in our lives very, very rapidly with this new form of human change. And on the other hand, NLP is a communication form. It's a form of communication with others and with ourselves. So how we talk to ourselves is really critically important for running those programs, as before I stated. And it's also about communicating with other people. How are you putting forth those ideas and communicating with others to get them on board, to be a leader, to find that you're on the same page, to have instant rapport with other people that has never happened before. It's an amazing thing. I hope that wasn't too long of an answer for your simple question, like what is NLP, but it is both those things and probably a lot more. So now, Margaret, you have to unmute yourself to ask another question. Are you there? Margaret? Margaret?
Unmute. Thought I took it off. It popped back on. Okay.
Okay, good.
So the next question I had is, what will the training be like?
In what way? What do you mean by what will it be like?
How
will it
much
be like a training?
How much time is involved in the schedule and coursework?
Okay, great. Well, that is an interesting question. If I may, when I first did my NLP training with Tony Robbins back a year or two ago, I think it was. Like, oh God, I hate to even say this, but it was like 30 years ago I did this first training with Anthony Robbins. It was an NLP certification course. My teacher in NLP was Tony Robbins. He was an NLP trainer. And I went out there to, I think it was Palm Desert, California. I don't know. I've been to a bunch of them. I've been to a whole bunch of them. I think the first one was wait. Scottsdale, Arizona. Sorry. And it was 12 days, 12 solid days. And if anyone here has ever been through an Anthony Robbins like weekend, imagine that for like almost 2 weeks. It's like morning till night for, like 12 days. I think there was a day off in the middle, but after it was over, I literally spent 3 days in bed. I mean, I just couldn't move. I had a fever. I was just spent. It was taxing. Great, but like overwhelming, just amazing. And not all good. I mean, it was good. It was fantastic. It was amazing, but it was like overwhelmingly, stuffed with information. When I became a trainer of NLP in the 90s, I thought, well, that's one model. But after having been through a bunch of different trainings by different people, Richard Bandler, who created it, Robert Dilts, who's one of the great developers of NLP, I thought there might be a better approach to the training than stuffing it all in like a 2-week period. So I developed a number of different training models. One that I've done for years, which is 1 weekend a month for like 6 months. And so those 12 days are over a 6-month period. It has its advantages. There's lots of time for study, a lot of time for reflection, but it's almost also like, you have a sentence that starts with, once upon a time there was a, and then you come back in a month and it continues. A brave soul that decided that they would charge the light brigade, and then you wait a month and then there's another sentence that continues from there, whereas if it's all together, it's all like one sentence after another. So it had its advantages, but it also had some disadvantages. What this training is, that what I finally come to, a kind of compromise between the two, is 3 intense weekends. But they're only 1 weekend, and then there's a separation, and then another weekend a few weeks later, maybe 2-3 weeks separating each of these 2 weekends. So it's 3 3-day weekends, and they are like long days, like a Tony Robbins day, like 9 in the morning till 9 at night, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But then we take a week off, or 2 or 3. And we do it again, a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, intense, but wonderful, experiential, where you're interacting with people, you're playing games, you're learning from books, and then another couple of weeks off, and then a third and final 3-day training. So it's 9 days total, 3 weekends, 3-day weekends, 9 days total, and each of those days is approximately 12 hours. Now there's lunch and dinner breaks, so we don't go crazy, but it's intensive, and yet at the same time gives a room for home study and practicing with other people away from the classroom.
Okay. So the next question, what is the syllabus like? There's
the syllabus. I'm so glad you asked that. Why didn't you start with that question? I'm amazed. Well, you know, the funny thing about syllabi is that is that as Tony Robbins once said, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. Um, it is a plan. It's as best as it can be a plan. I can tell you some of the material that we cover, if that works for you. And you know, this sounds very dry when you read it all out, but since you asked the question, I will tell you. We learn both foundation core skills, and we also learn classic patterns of change with some new things that we've developed as well over the years. Because one of the things, by the way, about NLP is that it started like back in the 70s with Richard Bandler and John Grinder, but then other people came along who are co-developers of it, and it sort of has branched out with different people taking their things in different directions a little bit. So there's, you know, new stuff. It's evolving. It's changing still. So we're not just learning something that historically happened back in the 70s and we're learning what that was. You know, we're learning some stuff that, yeah, it was developed in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, but also is still being developed today. So we try to cover all that. Basics, definitely. Basic assumptions of NLP. There's some kind of mental frameworks about which NLP looks at the brain. Very critical to understand. Like one example of that would be that the map is not the territory. Basic assumption of NLP. We also learn about representational systems, eye patterns, and how people sometimes are visual, sometimes they're auditory, sometimes they're kinesthetic. And the eye patterns, the way they use their eyes, telegraph that. So you can tell how a person's brain is functioning. You know, are they visualizing? Are they talking to themselves? Are they getting in touch with their feelings? And then you can communicate in their style. And that creates rapport. So rapport skills is also something we learn really rapidly. We learn to calibrate how people are, you know, how they're thinking with these eye patterns, but also what their moods are like, so we can, you know, interact with them and get instant rapport like that. Matching and mirroring voice, posture, tempo, those kind of gestures and things, pacing and leading, very critical things for rapport skills. Then we learn about how to start using this computer. So NLP, in a way, if we use the analogy that the brain is like a computer, NLP is the owner's manual for that in a very simple way. So we start learning, you know, the different ways that these computers are put together. What are the meta programs for the computer? You know, how do we think? What are some states? How do we get states and elicit states and anchor state? You know, in the firewalk, if you've done that, you make your move and you get in state. An anchor is useful for any number of purposes. We learn about anchoring, stacking anchors, collapsing anchors. We learn about perceptual positions. You know, I can be looking at myself from here, and I can then, you know, look at myself from this position and have a conversation about how we're talking with each other. It's amazing work. Chunking. But then we also get into language skills. One of the things about NLP is it was derived from a lot of different sources, like Ericksonian hypnosis. Milton Erickson was this brilliant, amazing hypnotherapist who was just light years in front of anybody else who was doing hypnosis at the time. Hypnosis was kind of relegated back to the sideshows, you know, after Freud, you know, throughout the 30s and 40s and 50s. It was just like nobody did hypnosis if they're serious, you know, therapist type people, until Milton Erickson came along. He was an MD. He was a psychotherapist. He was a psychiatrist who did hypnosis in a very different way than your traditional, you know, sideshow or, you know, state fair, you know, hypnotist who did stage hypnosis and made people cluck like chickens. With Milton Erickson, if you were alive and breathing, you could go into a trance, and he would make these changes happen by telling stories. And so we studied some of this language patterns that we call it the Milton model. NLP got hold of Erickson and hold of some other great, amazing change artists and found out how they use their brain, how they use language to effect change. So we learn all this stuff and much more, actually. That's probably maybe a third of all the course curriculum. That's what's coming to my mind at the moment. So I don't know. Does that sound like a good taster? Does it sound intriguing to you?
It does. Um, what, so do you
That
provide,
wasn't me, I swear.
do you provide materials for us to study?
Oh, of course, yeah. It comes with a quite extensive manual.
Okay.
Um, probably have one here. Do you want to see it?
Sure, why not?
You're gonna see some other things in a minute too. Hold on a second. Don't go away. It's probably up here. This is my little office here. Oh, sorry, I pulled down the Master Practitioner Manual, but
Okay.
it'll give you an example. I don't know if you heard me say that. I pulled down the Master Practitioner Manuals, but it looks like this. This is the official logo of the Society of NLP. Richard Bandler, who is the genius behind NLP, is the de facto president of the Society of NLP. I am certified by him. When you get certified through me, you'll get a certificate that's signed by myself and by Richard. So this is the Society logo. This is an official manual provided by the Society, but it is quite extensive, as you can tell. This is all this stuff. So you get all this, and there probably are other handouts that we'll be providing along the way as well. So yes, the answer to your question is yes. You get a lot of material to study along the way.
Okay. How can I practice what I learn in this course?
Oh, that's a great question. Because you know what? This is a communication skill. So without practice, some people think, oh, I read the book or I watched the video. It's not about that. This is about interacting with other people. So that's one of the reasons I really, the Tony Robbins, the first thing I did when I did the 12 days in a row, it was great, but we were all in this kind of enclosed environment, We were just interfacing with other people who were taking the exact same course we were. We didn't go outside of this, artificial environment of the seminar room for 12 days kind of thing. But what we do in the seminars, we do that same thing in the seminar for a weekend, but then, you go home for a few weeks before you come back again, and you practice this stuff with your kids, with your coworkers, with your spouse. It's about communication, and it's about real life, real-time communication with other people. So there's a lot of practice that is assigned, work that you will do, and of course you'll just do it on your own as well because it's so much fun and it is so effective.
Okay. Where will the training be?
It's I assume it'll be held at where I usually hold it, which is down in Lower Manhattan, by Wall Street.
Okay.
Right?
New York City.
New York City.
Okay. Do I have to have any knowledge in psychology or neurology?
No.
Okay.
Short answer, no. That's no.
Well, you kind of answered this before, but I am going to ask it again. What is the process and methodology behind the learning?
Just tell me the question again. What is the methodology behind the learning?
The process and the methodology behind the learning.
Okay. I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that question, but I'll take a stab at it. It is a communication skill. NLP is a communication skill. So there is a lot of exercises in the groups. Typically, as an example, we'll present a new technique that we'll be teaching, and I will talk about it. I'll get someone up there to demonstrate it with me, and so I'll do a group demonstration in front of the group, and then everyone will divide up into groups of 2s or 3s or 4s depending on the exercise, and do it with each other. So a lot of processing is being done in the process of the class. It is actually remarkably rich change environment. That you come out the other side of this as a changed human, in addition to having learned some great skills. So there's a lot of interacting, and you do a lot of work on yourself. It's kind of funny because when you get to the master practitioner level, you start doing an exercise and say, okay, well, think of a problem that you have. Think of like, I don't have any problems anymore. I don't know. I've fixed them all along the way, so it's
Okay.
really good for that.
Okay. Can I use NLP to help my clients and myself?
Why, yes, I would hope so. Yeah, that is kind of the point. It is not only to help your clients, it is also to help yourself. And that's actually a very good question because, you know, a few years ago, if I may lapse into a little storytelling mode here, I took my first NLP training from Tony Robbins back in 1985, and it was a firewalk experience here in New York, and it was a few years before I actually took my first certification course from him, 87, I guess. Um, but along the way, you know, I also took trainings from Robert Dilts and from Richard Bandler, and you know, pretty much anybody who taught it that was, you know, good at it. I took a course from them, and I became ultimately a trainer for Anthony Robbins' organization. Then he promoted me to level of master trainer, which was when he was doing trainings, he needed to have other trainers that were there, but he also had to have people supervising them who really, well, I don't mean to toot my horn or anything, but really knew their stuff. I was at the expert level so that he could trust that I would be able to, you know, guide the trainers, to guide the participants, etc. So there came a time when this particular trainer, who had been coming to several of the things and was always saying, "Well, why haven't I been promoted to master trainer?" She was kind of a interesting piece of work, let's say. Um, she was sitting in the back of the training room, standing at the back of the training room, just kind of like glaring at Tony the entire time. And at one of the rare intermissions, he came up to me and he said, "Doug, come here." I said, "Yeah." I said, "Go, like, fix her or something." You know, go do something with her, make her stop that. Um, it was just one of those things. It's like, how is it that a person can go through all these trainings and not apply it to themselves? It just boggled our collective minds as to, like, how could she, you know, not be using it for herself? She was really good at using it for other people, but she wasn't using it on herself.
Mm.
So my mission has been, when I've learned how to be a, you know, a better trainer through over the years, is to sort of install or inspire, hopefully, the idea amongst my students that yes, you are going to use this communication for persuasion for other people. It's like my book, Sleight of Mouth, is about persuading other people, but it is also about how do you persuade yourself? How do you change yourself? How do you, you know, change your own state, manage your own state, you know, so that you're at your best all the time, you know? Because this is what it's about, really. It's about communication, intrapersonal and interpersonal, with other people and with yourself, to make yourself the best you can be while you're simultaneously helping others.
Okay. Someone actually just Facebooked me and she
Oh,
asked, she did,
did
she
it
said,
hurt?
will this help? No. She said, will this help my 15-year-old daughter that needs to lose 100 pounds? She is a
Hmm.
skeptic.
Well, I don't know how to answer that question. Is her daughter going to take the training?
No, I believe that I believe that she wants to take the training and possibly teach it to her daughter.
Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. Um, Here, look.
Fitness.
This is one of the examples of things. And wait, I have another product back here. Yeah. Look at that. See that? Yeah, this stuff can be used. This is it's kind of a hypnosis CD, but none of my stuff is purely hypnosis or NLP. It kind of blends together. Um, this works for changing your brain. The brain obviously the most is a central um, place in the body and the mind that control eating, control desires of, you know, it's the greatest erogenous zone, you know, of the body is the mind. When we can change that, yeah, obviously we can change our habits, we can change our attitudes, we can change our responses to things. It's yeah, short answer is yes. It can help the daughter. It can help anybody lose weight, get in great shape, be healthy. Absolutely.
Okay. Is there a recommended reading list? So I'm not sure if this would be prior to the course or during the course, but is there a recommended reading list?
Yes. It's optional. I mean, you don't need to. You can just show up with knowing nothing, and we start from the get-go. We start from the presuppositions of NLP and work our way up. It is a beginner's course, if you will, that takes you to proficiency where you get certified as a practitioner. So it builds it from the ground up. And yes, reading is always a good way to learn even more. We learn experientially. I think we learn mostly experientially. It's like learning a language. You don't learn a language from a book. Like when you're a kid, your parents will go like, okay, and here's a book about English. And I want you to have it, study this every day. It's like kids just like learn. They just want to eat. They want to, whatever. So we learn experientially. Most of the courses are experiential. And it's also useful to read. And the people who get really good at it, I think, are the people who do both. Who are reading and experiencing and playing, like the kids with curiosity, but they're reading it as well. So we have a variety of books that we recommend, and they are optional. So on my website, ericksonian.com, there's a whole selected reading list. It starts with Tony Robbins' book, actually. This Unlimited Power book is an NLP book. It really is. It's a primer to NLP, and frankly, it's one of the best ones out there. There are some other NLP books that have attempted to be like I'm looking at my bookshelf over there now. There's one called Mindworks, an Introduction to NLP, which is just good. The Ultimate Introduction by Richard Bandler. The Ultimate Introduction to NLP by Richard Bandler should be good because Richard Bandler is like the guy that invented it, but it's really not that great of a book. But Unlimited Power by Tony Robbins has been for the past 30 years my number one go-to choice is the primer for NLP. There's also a book called The Idiot's Guide, I think, to NLP, which is actually surprisingly good.
Okay. Let me see. Do I get a certification for this course?
Do you get a certification?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes, this is a certification course. You get certified as a practitioner of NLP. The third day of the third weekend, the last day of the class, is a testing day. At least half of it is a 12-hour day, 9 in the morning till 9 at night. So about 6 hours of that day is devoted to testing. And when you pass the test, you get certified.
Okay.
And like I said, it's certified by the Society of NLP. So you become a fully accredited society practitioner. So that's like, the cream of the crop, really. Let me just tell you, I don't mean to slander any of my competitors or anything. There are some very, very good trainers in the world, but there has been, in the past few years, how do I put this nicely, a slackening of rigor. That's good. A slackening of rigor. There have been people like my training day is 9 days of 12-hour days, so it's about 120 hours of work. It's the same, virtually the same number of hours as when I do a 6-month training. We just sort of squeeze it in, trying to get the best of both worlds. Some people are out there, they're doing an NLP certification in 4 days. 4 days. And they say you're certified. You are certified. You have a piece of paper that says you're certified, but you are not certified by the Society of NLP. And frankly, even though it might be cheaper, the old saying is true. You get what you pay for. These are not good trainings. I've been a trainer for a number of years with Tony Robbins. I'm certified as a trainer from Richard Bandler, as a master trainer for Tony's organization. I've worked hard to create trainings that come at you from a variety of ways. So it is experiential. There is reading to be done. There's cognitive stuff. There's experiential stuff. There's trance stuff. We do every day. We do hypnosis stuff so that it's being kind of filtered into your unconscious mind. We work at all the angles so that when you are done with this training, you know this stuff and you know that you know it. it's not just installed, and you also know it cognitively. So you can do it, you can talk about doing it, you can explain it to other people.
Okay. What will the certification do for me? I guess that's a question of how can I use the certification? Hmm. Doug? Michelle? Hello? Doug? You're back. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. It like froze for a second there.
I was frightened. So yes. Do you have other questions, or do you want to open the mics to the audience, or how do you want to go about this?
Did you answer did you hear the last one?
Did I hear the
How will I be able to use the certification?
Oh, no, I didn't hear
Okay.
that question.
Sorry.
How will you be able to use the certification?
Yes.
Okay. Well, if you wanted to, you could do what I do, which is I'm a coach, and I work with people. I talk to people on the phone. I do my form of coaching. Let me see. Yeah, my my teacher of coaching was this guy Thomas Leonard. I don't know if you can see that book or not. Thomas Leonard wrote this book. So my form of coaching that I do is slightly different than other people's. Well, just keep it there for now. But I also do one-on-one sessions. So people come to me, they want to lose weight, they want to quit smoking, they want to get over their depression, get over their phobias. NLP is great with phobias. You know, people come because they have these things. And instead of going to a therapist, they come see me. And I charge $300 for a session, which is a lot more. I used to teach piano lessons for a living, and you get a lot more money for doing NLP and hypnosis things than you do for teaching piano lessons, I can tell you that. And this is how I make my living. I work with people. I work with individuals, and I coach people. That's what I do. And I, of course, do these trainings too, but on a daily basis, I work out of an office in Manhattan. Actually, the same office suite where we'll hold this class is it's a professional suite, which is to say it's a room, it's a suite of empty rooms that you can rent by the hour when you're certified to do what you do. And you will be certified as an NLP practitioner so that you can, rent these rooms by the hour. It's very inexpensive. And they'll, take your mail for you. They'll, you can use that address as your home address. You can mail things there. They'll take your phone calls. They'll make appointments for you. It's really pretty cool.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, does anyone have any questions? Any questions? They're all muted. If you can
No.
wave if you have any questions. No?
Margaret, you're doing really well for your first time on a Facebook, on a Google chat.
Am I?
You're doing great, yeah.
Thank you. I think they're frozen. Michelle, she hasn't moved.
Well, I think if you click on them, they're not frozen.
Let's see.
Moved.
Should I click on her?
Michelle's waving. There she goes.
Oh, my screen's absolutely frozen.
Is it really?
Yeah.
And if you click on their images, because
See. Oh, there you are.
Yeah. See that?
Do you have any questions, Michelle?
Or Sheila or Veronica? No. Wow. Sometimes people ask me about the hypnosis connection, because as an example, this weekend I'm going to be teaching a course on Ericksonian hypnosis, and they hear them combined a lot, and so I could just talk about that for another minute or two, because I find it very fascinating. NLP was really derived from the modeling of excellence, It is used kind of as a therapeutic tool, which is to say fixing problems. People come, they want to, not be overweight, they want to become thin and fit and trim, and so we help them overcome the problems the barriers that stop them from getting there. But ultimately, it actually began from looking at every ability that we have as everything that we do is an ability. So, as an example, if a person has a phobia of flying, and they get on a plane and suddenly they're like freaking out, an NLP person goes, well, that's not a problem, that's an ability. That person has an ability to freak themselves out in a situation where most other people are going like, yeah, I wonder if we're going to be on time today, or I have a layover thing, right? But they're freaking out. It's like, well, how do they do that? An NLP person would go like, wow, interesting. How do you do that? And want to know what are they picturing in their mind? What pictures are they making? How are they comparing it to things? How big are the pictures? How are they talking to themselves? What way are they talking to themselves? What are the strategies they're employing to create this response? How are they using their computer to do that? It's a brilliant NLP question. And everything that we do is a function of the brain processing in a certain way. So NLP started off with Bandler and Grinder saying, wow, how does this guy, Milton Erickson, do hypnosis so differently and brilliantly from anybody else that does? Because remember, up to those days, hypnosis had been kind of relegated to the sideshows, and you'd see stage hypnosis guys who'd be, making people cluck like chickens or act like they're weightless on Mars, or, forget their number 6, they count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, count your fingers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Oh, you have 11 fingers? I said, no, I got 10 fingers. Well, you better count them again. Very funny stuff. But that's what hypnosis was. Problem was, they only had usually 1 or 2 ways of getting a person into trance, right? It was like waving the watch back and forth kind of thing, and your eyes are getting sleepy, right? And they'd have that one way of doing hypnosis. Some people would resist that, right? They'd say, well, screw this guy. I'm not going into trance for him. He scares me or whatever, right? So they would resist it. So the hypnotist would go like, oh, well, she's resistant, right? And sort of blame the guy, blame the client, blame the patient, she's resistant. She's unhypnotizable. And so it gave this impression that some people are hypnotizable, some people aren't. For Milton Erickson, if you were breathing, you could be hypnotized. And so Bandler and Grinder, the 2 guys who started NLP, thought like, wow, how does he do that? I want to learn. I want to know how he uses his brain, how he uses his language, how he uses his body and physiology to create that response in other people. So a lot of NLP became the modeling of the excellence that was Milton Erickson and Ericksonian hypnosis. So for me, when I studied NLP, Tony alluded to him, he mentioned him a couple times, but he never really taught it much. But as I, got to the master practitioner level and people who were starting to be like really good at NLP, Erickson's name kept coming up, and I began to learn that it was where NLP came from. So the more I got into NLP, the more I wanted to learn Ericksonian hypnosis, and I went to try to find out how I could do that, and found those doors were closed because Erickson was a psychiatrist. And he had this idea that, Ericksonian hypnosis should be taught only to psychiatrists or, psychotherapists or licensed people helpers. And I was a musician. I came to New York City to play in rock and roll bands in the 1980s. That's what I did. And I did that for 6 years. When I first did my firewalk, I was a rock and roller. That's what my job was. I was also a music teacher, but I had no background in psychotherapy. I think I took a Psych 101 course in college or something. But they wouldn't let me in to Ericksonian classes. They wouldn't do it. So I signed up for I matriculated as a psych major to get my master's degree in psychotherapy. I did. I never went to a single class, but while I was matriculated, I was able to go to these Ericksonian conferences and things because, I was officially a a psych major, so they let me in.
Okay.
So that's kind of how I learned Ericksonian hypnosis, is through the back door like that. But it's fascinating stuff, and much of NLP is derived from the genius of Milton Erickson. So there's a lot of interconnection there.
Okay. What was
And
that
you
like
can,
meeting Erickson?
oh, I didn't meet Erickson.
Oh, you did not.
Erickson was dead by the time I even heard about NLP. He died in
Okay.
1979, I think, or 80, and I
Okay.
first got involved in 85. But I did meet his wife, and I'm friends with his daughter. I don't know if that counts or not. But
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I'm taking your class this weekend, and I
I
am
know you're taking the
very
Ericksonian class.
very excited to be taking it. So,
I'm excited to have you there. So we have reached almost the end of our 45-minute slotted time. We can keep going if there are other questions or things you want to know.
well, I've got through all the questions on the list and the Facebook one. Anybody else have any questions? Oh, very important. You know what? That was on the list. I missed that one. I was saving it for last.
How did that get typed in like that? That's so cool.
She put it in the chat, in the Q&A on the
That's
side.
cool. Neat. So what's the answer, Margaret?
I don't know. What is it?
Well, I'll tell you this. I can tell you what it has cost in the past, and we can work it out. The typical price is $34.95. In other words, $3,495 is the list price, and that's somewhat the going price for, as I said, legitimate trainings. There are people you can get it for less, but truly, honestly, you get what you pay for. And if you want to get a really legitimate training, it's going to be about that price, about $3,400, $3,500. I've seen it for 38. I've seen it for 41. But I also do discount it for people who sign up in advance. So $31.95 is a typical price like that. And I'm certainly willing to, since you're organizing this, Margaret, I'm certainly willing to, make a kind of group discount for you guys. So we can certainly work that out. I've done it for as little as I think $29.95.
Okay.
But I'm totally open to whatever works for you guys.
I don't know how this is happening, but
But
I'm getting people who are not on the live broadcast messaging me. Here's another question well, we will be arranging the dates. This was a Q&A, but two people, Stan and James, they want to see what the dates are, and they will try to fit it in their schedule.
yeah. Well, I believe we're having something of a rolling enrollment here. If you correct me if I'm wrong, but once we get people who are wanting to do it, then we'll figure out dates. Is that the way
Yes.
you're doing it,
Yes.
Margaret?
And we're
Okay.
trying to get a minimum of 10 people to make this happen.
So yeah, it's a kind of different way of going about it, but we'll figure out the dates once we get a kind of quorum of people who are committing to doing it when it does happen, and then we'll figure out how it can happen within people's schedules. But it's going to be 3 weekends. It'll be three-day weekends. I believe that's what we agreed on, isn't it, Margaret?
Yeah, it was, I think a toss-up between what would kind of work. Either we could do the 1 weekend a month for 6 months,
Yeah.
or we can do the 3 weekends within the 3 months.
I'm open. If you want to do the 6-month thing, that works too.
Okay.
It's a very, very nice way to go. That way nobody has to miss any work days, unless of course you work weekends, in which case, oh well, sorry about that. But most people 9-to-5 jobs, Monday through Friday. So if you want to do weekends, that's fine. The difference is, of course, is that it's stretched out over 6 months.
Right.
Or at least usually is. I suppose we could do it over fewer months. We could squeeze those 6 weekends into 4 months or something like that, every third weekend or something. We could figure out a schedule like that.
Okay. And if we do the 3 weekends, I mean, we can definitely have our NLP certification before the fall.
Oh yeah.
Which I would definitely do. So yeah, what I guess I'll do from here is I'll check in with the group, because this, we're live now, but there's going to be a copy of this going to YouTube, and that link I'm going to post in the group, on the group page.
Great. I wish I had, worn a better shirt. YouTube. Wow. Wait till Mom hears.
Okay, so what's the cost? And this, so the schedule, that would be the next question. That will be determined. I will, I guess, kind of take a poll.
Take a poll, yeah. Find out if people want to, get it done in the three weekends and, certified by September, or if you want to stretch it out a bit more, which is okay too.
Okay. Awesome.
Both of them work very well. So whatever really, the poll says, I'm open to doing that.
Okay. Awesome. So if we don't have any more questions.
If people want to look at, me or my website, ericksonian.com is my website. I'm also working on a new website, which should be released shortly. It's very close. Just have a few little more things to work out, called DougO'BrienHypnosis.com.
Okay.
It is both NLP and hypnosis, of course, but it's DougO'BrienHypnosis.com or ericksonian.com. Milton Erickson's name is a CK in it, so Ericksonian is ERICKSONIAN.com.
Okay.
That's it. Yeah. Thank you.
And Doug, when will Doug O'Brien, DougO'Brien.com, or was it
DougO'BrienHypnosis.com.
When will that be launched?
I don't have a set date, but it's probably 95% done. There's just a couple of videos we want to add that we're kind of waiting till they get, I don't know what videos get, but done, finished. I've videotaped them. Now the guy's editing and putting sound on it and stuff like that. So as soon as they're done, we're ready to go. Soon.
Okay.
DougO'BrienHypnosis.com. Thank you. Yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Doug, I want to say thank you very much for your time.
Well, if you want to do it, why don't you just go ahead and do that then?
I am going to do that.
All right, go ahead. Do it. Say it.
I'm going to do it. It's done.
Welcome. You're welcome.
Done. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for all showing up. Yeah. Bye. Bye. Thanks so much for coming. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.